Hello, hello, hello. Happy Thursday, everyone. Happy Thursday. Hope you're doing well on this Thursday. It feels like I'm getting later and later with these lives, but this is day 24. 24. I've been doing this for 24 days, y'all, about systems that make teams work. So I am super excited and proud of myself because I've hung in there and I'm just getting to the finish line. So a couple more days of I am talking about this topic, and then we'll see what happens after that. For those that don't know me, my name is Tashina, and I'm an executive leadership and team coach. And I help teams and the leaders who lead them collaborate better, heal from conflict, and get shit done without the drama. And for those that don't know, I have a webinar or a masterclass coming up, aka, you know, coming up on November 5th. I would love for you to register and join and come on in. I'm going to talk about being that leader. When I say be that leader, what I'm talking about is that leader who's afraid, who's unafraid to show up authentically, that leader who is able to manage a team and delegate and empower them, that leader who creates the psychological safety, that leader who isn't drinking the corporate Kool-Aid, that leader. And being that leader in the midst of recessions, layoffs, AI, things like that, like we still can be some phenomenal leaders, even in spite of all that complexity. So click the link in my bio and my feature post, um, or on my post. I think there's a QR code on LinkedIn, but click that link so that you can register for November the 5th. This is going to be a wonderful masterclass. We're going to go deep on some topics of being that leader. And we'll do some hot seat coaching too. So if you ever wanted to experience my coaching real time, this will be your opportunity. Okay. All right, so let's dive into the topic for today. Share this live. If you are here, share this live for anyone else to help me get my message further out into your network. So, for the past 23 lives, I have been talking about systems. And I've been talking about systems, and I've been talking about how you lead in systems where you still show up in your full humanity, where you still show up human, where you create the space for others to show up as humans. And today, I want to continue on that path and talk about something else that I see in organizations, and that is not just the broken systems, because we know I've been talking about broken systems. There are broken systems. There are also healthy systems, or there are broken pieces within systems. But the piece that I want to talk about today is not just a broken system, but systems that are bloated. Systems that are bloated. And so that's what I want to talk about today. Okay. All right. Let me fix this. Okay. So when I talk about being bloated and having a system that's bloated, this is when I'm starting to see teams that keep adding processes, or you keep adding tools, or you keep adding more meetings, right? And you're doing all of this addition of things because you feel like that's going to solve the problems that you have. But then what happens is that you end up creating even more confusion, even more complexity, even more tension in the system rather than creating less. Okay. And the reality is sometimes you don't need more. Sometimes simple is better. And you just need more space, more openness, more flexibility, more expansiveness, more capacity in your system in order for it to be well, to be healthy, or to run well. Okay. And so when there is a lot going on in your system, I like to call this a system overload. You have overloaded the system. It's kind of like when your car overheats, you have completely overloaded it because you keep pushing the system to do things, and it eventually will break down. It eventually will break down the flow. It will eventually break down communication. It eventually just break down. So today, what I want to unpack is why adding fixes, the things that we call fixes, can make your system heavier and not healthier, how complexity hides real problems. So it's harder to get to the root of problems when there's a lot of complexity. And then how to simplify your system without losing alignment or accountability. Because we always believe if we start freeing up and we have less, we won't be aligned anymore or people won't be accountable. Okay. So let's start with the why. Let's start with the why. Simon Sinek says start with why. Okay. So we are starting with why. Why do we keep adding more when we feel our system is broken? Share this live. This is like we're wrapping up this week on what the systems look like. And so we're wrapping it up now. And so I'm talking about why. Why do we keep adding fixes? So most leaders do not overload their systems on purpose. On purpose. It's not intentional, right? And that's part of the problem is that without in the absence of intentionality, you just do everything that you think you need to do. You just throw spaghetti at the wall. And the reason why specifically they keep adding more processes or more things or overloading the system is because we feel like there's a problem that needs to be solved quickly and fast and in a hurry, and everything is urgent. And so we have so much pressure to solve it right away. And that's a real problem. Like that's a real, not problem, that's a real feeling. Like, oh my God, I have to do this right away because I think something is going to happen. And so when a process breaks, we start to add a new policy. Or when communication is messy, we're like, let's add another meeting. Let's do another team meeting. Let's do a team building session, right? Or when people are not being held accountable, we start adding other layers of approval. So because you can't hold that person accountable, you're going to put somebody in the middle of that to be the bad guy, good cop, bad cop. Like you're going to have that person be. I know somebody who was always a scapegoat for somebody and who was always holding people accountable. And it really got hard for this individual. However, had it not been hard, it still would have been hard for everyone else because there's an additional layer of approval baked in that. And then before you know it, your team has 10 new tools, 10 new frameworks, 12 new check ins, and then you don't have any time to actually get the work done that you really need to get done. And I'll tell you, it does come from a good place. We want order. We want things to be, in the right place. But what we really cause is a lot of tension when this happens. And so the pattern in this is that instead of you fixing what the root cause is, you fix the symptom. I did a live some weeks ago or days ago about is it a system? No, actually I did a podcast on this. Is it a symptom or is it the system? Go check that podcast out because I talk about that and how to figure out which one is which. But when we add more things to the system because we're trying to solve a problem, we're just creating more issues because it's not the root of the problem. And then every fix adds more weight onto an already heavy system, and now things are overloaded, and now your car is overheating because you're going to add more meetings, you're going to add more tools, you're going to add more processes. And you know what happens to your people? They're going to say, you know what? I'm checked out. I'm done. I am like, they're done. They're burnt out because there's just too much going on. So they disengage. And now your system is running slower than what you thought it should be doing, right? Then you're actually causing the very problem that you're trying to solve for because your solution is a symptom level problem instead of a system level problem. That was good. Okay. That was good. I'm giving y'all a lot for free. Okay. Just kidding. All right. So let's keep it moving. Let's keep it moving. So, when a system is overloaded, when everything requires a meeting. How many, I want y'all to be honest, put it in the chat. How many meetings are you actually in weekly? How many meetings are you in daily? How many meetings? What's the average for y'all, right? And based on that average, I want you to multiply that by your salary. And you tell me how much it's costing just for you to be in the meeting, and then thinking about everybody else and how much it costs them to be in that meeting. The system is overloaded because we start to have meetings for everything. Or this is the one that makes my skin crawl, is that everybody has to be in every conversation. Why? We need everybody and their mama to be in a conversation for what? Right? And we do this in the spirit of transparency and, for everyone to feel like they can be a part of the conversation, or they feel like they belong, or to be inclusive. We do that in that spirit, right? But how many, this is the kind of the way that I used to design this was, I thought about, in my group, we thought about like a pizza size, like one pizza, how many people do you actually need, right? That can feed, and it has to only be the amount of people that a large, extra large pizza can feed, right? And so we will instead invite everybody. So there's 5 salespeople, there's 5 managers, there's 5 people from the same team, there's 5. Like we duplicate the amount of people in a meeting, and they all will come with the same perspective. And that slows things down. Or we will try to just like get people who aren't even in the work, who aren't close to the work. And we get everybody in the conversation because we think we need to be inclusive. This is where inclusivity kind of goes wrong, is because we have the wrong people in the conversations, and we really need to just have the people that really need to be decision makers, or who's very much impacted by the work. Those are the people that need to be in the conversation. So get the people closest to the work to be in your conversations, not everybody and their mama and their grandmama too. We don't need all those people. Another way that you know that the system is overloaded is that work has to go through several layers before a simple yes. Everybody is checking it off. I mean, it's not just 4 people around the track passing a baton. It's like 10 people. And you're like, oh my goodness, only took one step to get to the next person, and that person and that person. And so what happens? We have a lot of bottlenecks. And we again probably have people who really don't understand because they're far removed from the work. And now we just have all these layers. Your system is overloading. You will also hear words and hear people say things like, I don't even know what matters anymore. I don't know what matters. I don't know where I'm supposed to focus. I don't know. We spend a whole lot of time talking about this issue and nobody's doing anything about it. We're doing a lot of coming together and having meetings, but there's no action. You're going to start hearing that. You're going to start seeing these things. And that's how you know there's an overload problem. And when there's an overload problem, I guarantee your system is slow. Your customer, your client, whoever you engage with, has to wait a long time to get what they need. But that's what happens when we start to design to control things instead of designing for clarity, for things to be clear. That's what happens. Y'all, my little thing is all in my camera. But that's what happens. Okay? And it also, another thing that happens is that we start to say we need to put structures in place because it makes us feel safe, right? So it goes through a bunch of layers, aka a lot of micromanaging, because that makes us feel safe. It makes us feel in control. So when you see that, this is what you know. This is how you know that the system is overloaded. But complexity and adding all these layers of things and more frameworks and more tools, it doesn't protect your system at all. It slows it down, and sometimes it comes to a full stop because you've added all this stuff that does not help you as a leader. Okay? So we want to get simple. We want to get simple. Somebody put in the chat, we want to get simple. Somebody put simple in the chat. Put simple. Because that's what we want. And I want to tell you, simplification is not about cutting corners or not doing what you're supposed to do. It's actually about removing the addition of layers that you really don't need. It's having leadership that says from to or even over. Sorry. Like, we're going to choose this over this. We're going to not do this so that we can do this. We're going to have a to not do list. It means subtracting, it means taking things away. The best leaders that I've worked with are super editors. Super editors. They will edit the freaking thing out of their work processes. They know what to remove so that what actually matters are the things that you work on. So, some examples of this is there's only one decision maker per project. There's not 5 million reviewers. There's not 5 million people that have to look at it. It's one person. We know who the owner is. I talked about this in another live where, the person who brings the tension is the person who will own the decision. That's the person closest to the work. That's the decision maker. And so systems that are healthy, that are moving, that are thriving are doing this. There's also, another way to do this is that you have one meeting for the topic that you need to address. No overlapping check-ins, no meetings after the meetings. Have the one meeting, take action on the things you need to take action on, and let's go do. Because if we're having several meetings and meetings after the meeting, something is not clear. That is a pure sign for being unclear. And then one tool. Let's use one tool for transparency, one tool to see where things are at, one tool to see the flow of work, not 10 places where you have to update the same information a million different times. Your system is slow if you're doing this. And so before you add something new to your system, I want you to ask yourself, what is the problem that this is actually solving for? And is there something I can remove first? I literally had this conversation with the leader today where I had to ask this leader, you want this process to happen and you're adding this, but what is it solving for? What is it actually solving for? I don't think we ask that question enough. And if we're not asking that question, we are, doing things, from our gut. We're being more reactive than proactive. We're not being simple. We are just, from the gut. We're like, our instinct tells me I need to be safe. I need to survive. I need to control. I need to micromanage. And so we're just going to do this without actually thinking through the problem through. So we want to be intentional. What is the problem solving? Because systems, y'all got systems where y'all don't need another process. Y'all got enough process to last you forever. We know that. You got processes, you could pull it out of your toolbox and your purse. You have enough processes. So that's not the problem. The problem is you have too many processes and it doesn't have any purpose, or it's a duplication of efforts or duplication of work. And so we want to remove ourselves from doing that. But I talked about not just the system, because I also want to continue to bring this back to the people, the people, the people. And so I want to talk about the people inside of this system. Because it's not just the processes, the tangible like things, the material things that slows work down, but the people will start to drain. It will drain your energy if you're waiting on something and you want to move forward. The more things you keep in your head, this is why it's so good for people to actually write down their to-do list, because they can write it and like kind of remove it from their head, and they don't have to hold on to it so tight in order to not forget it. So when you have a to-do list, write it down. Write the things that you have to do down, because it's a very helpful way of not draining your energy. The more you have to remember, the more you have to keep track of, it can literally drain your energy. I'm a calendar girl. I put everything on my calendar, everything, because I got kids and I got a lot of things going on. And so I have to put everything on my calendar because I don't want my energy drained. And when we talk about leadership, leadership is not about that life. If it's all about burnout. I know people who don't want to step into leadership because they feel they're going to be burnt out. But you don't have to be afraid of leadership. You do not have to be afraid of leadership. You just have to build systems that make sure that your energy stays intact. And when people are not intact, they also stop thinking critically. Now, I say this when I'm under a lot of stress, I am not freaking creative at all. And I can't think. My EQ, IQ, it drops. And I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Because when you are in a space of like, I don't want to say fight, flight, or freeze, but when you are in a space where you feel like you have to always be on and you have to keep on top of things, it's almost like there's a threat, like we were in the cave days and a bear was chasing after us, or a lion was chasing after us, and our EQ just our emotional intelligence just really just drop. Our IQ drops, and we don't know if the threat is real or perceived. Our brain doesn't know. And so our critical thinking goes out the door. Now we don't know what we're talking about. Now our creativity is gone. And if my creativity is gone and I'm not in a place where I feel like I don't have a foggy brain and things like that, I'm going to stop taking ownership too. Because if everything requires another level of approval, I'm holding on to things for too long that I should be able to let go. And it's taking up real estate in my brain for me to do something else, for me to think, for me to reflect, all of these type of things. Okay. And so eventually you don't just have a performance problem. You're going to have this system problem. You're going to have bottleneck problems. You're going to have people taking risks. You're going to have people feeling like they are empowered. You're going to have a lot of problems. So when we get simple, we are telling our people we trust you, and we don't have to put a bunch of things in place in order for you to actually do the work and get work done. If I'm putting systems in place, it's probably because I want some level of control. I know people who are like, I need to have all the things in place. Real time, I'm dealing with somebody like that. I need to have all these like SOPs and all these things. And it's not because they're trying to make it simple. They need control. It's a lot of noise. It's a lot of things that's messing it up. And it really just blocks the ability to feel like, oh, I can do this. There's a lot of creativity here. Okay. So if your system feels stuck, if you feel this way, here are some things that you can do as a leader to get back on track. Okay. First thing is audit. I want you to audit everything, all the recurrent meetings, all the tools, all the approvals that you have to do. Audit all of those things and ask yourself what is actually essential, what is essential and what actually needs to stay in place. And then ask yourself the opposite of what's noise, what's getting in the way? What are the headwinds? What are the tailwinds? Like get that in your head, audit that. And you want to audit this before you start adding anything else. Because again, we want to be of the mindset that we are going to do one thing even over this other thing because it makes sense. And so you want to audit yourself. The second thing is be real about what really is the problem. Be real, because sometimes things happen And the problem is just that somebody didn't understand, or somebody didn't get onboarded correctly, or somebody had to be out of work. And so that's why things are, a problem. Be real. Be real. Let's not make the problem have to do with like, I need more eyes on this, or I need to performance manage somebody. Because if you need to performance manage somebody, performance manage them, please. But don't create an entire process because you're afraid of the conflict of performance managing. So be real, be all the way 100%, 100% about what the real problem is. And then the last thing is design for ease. A good system should feel lighter. It shouldn't feel heavy. It should pull people to want to do more, to really work with you, to feel committed to the job. It should feel that way. It should not make people feel like I'm small, I need to be quiet, I can't say my opinion, I can't push back. You don't want people to feel that way. So design for ease, ease of work, ease of flow. Flow doesn't come from having more stuff. Flow comes when you're aligned and when you're simple. Okay? So audit yourself, audit your tools, your processes, your meetings, audit all of that. Name what really is the problem, and then design for ease. Make it simple, right? I know of an acronym called KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Can we say that still? I don't know. But yeah, keep it simple, stupid. Okay. All right. And I'm not calling any of you stupid. I'm just saying that is a phrase that has been used of like, just keep it simple, like kiss your systems, okay? Kiss your systems. That's what I want you to do. All right. So here's a reflection at the end. I always like to share reflections. This week, I want you to ask, what has your system become? Where has your system become too heavy for it to work? Where has it become too heavy? Where has it been an overload of meetings or overload of processes or overload of decisions? And what could you remove that will make this work easier for your team? And what's one fix you can stop adding? What's one fix you can stop adding? What's one thing you can stop saying we need to do all the time? Maybe that person doesn't actually need to be a reviewer. This will help you move from a place of control and adding things and start leading, start developing, because systems don't need you to constantly fix them. When you put something in place, you should know if everything is in place where it should be, it's going to work. It's going to move and flow the way it needs to. So you don't have to fix everything all the time. You just have to be really intentional to focus on the processes and the things that you put in place in your system and make sure that they work. Okay? So in closing, I just want to share that simplicity is a strategy. It is a strategy. Leaders who know how to simplify don't lose control. They don't react. They don't come from a place of like a gut, like, like, oh my God, we got to do this. Oh my God, everything is urgent. If you hear somebody say something is urgent, question it, ask a question. Ask a question. If they say that the thing is urgent, I want you to ask, what problem needs to be solved for at this time? What problem needs to be solved for at this time? And if they can't give you an answer, it's likely not that urgent. Okay, you feel me? I'm trying to get you back your time. I'm trying to get you back your time. Okay. So before you add that extra tool, that extra meeting, or that extra policy, just pause. Pause and ask that question. Okay. You will be able to, move your team forward when you make things simple, when you don't try to overload your system and you try to make it so that people feel good. Okay. All right. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm not doing 6 o'clock. I'm not doing 7 o'clock tomorrow, y'all. I can tell you that right now. Okay. tomorrow, meet me here at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Meet me. I will be here tomorrow at 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And I am going to be talking about some of that emotional labor that happens. Okay. We went into it a little bit, we touched on it, but I really want to dive into like how emotional labor in systems impacts us all. And it really impacts especially women of color. Okay. So I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night. Bye.